Hello, folks. I'm back again today. Seriously considered giving you guys a day off, but so be it. You know, one of these days I'll have something to do, and I won't do a video, I promise. Today I'm going to do one of my not too well thought out videos. It's a theme, though. Something I've been thinking of for a little while, and until about just a few minutes ago when I went digging around, I'm like, oh, I have enough to do this. What I wanted to do is, this might be a series, I don't know, it depends on how many of these I come across. I found pretty much most of what I was looking for, and that is albums that I bought because I liked the covers. So this can go a couple different ways. I'm not really including things that were by groups that I already was or musicians that I was already familiar with, where it was just a question of, well, I'm going to try to get as much of their stuff as I can, but I'm going to buy this one because I like the cover. Because I would have eventually bought that album anyway. This is more the direction of either musicians that I was interested in getting to know but wasn't yet familiar with, who had a bunch of records out, and I decided that I was going to eventually get something by them. So how do I decide which album to pick up by them? I'll let the cover decide, whichever cover floats my boat. In other cases, maybe I was a bit familiar with the musician, but I probably wouldn't have bought this album by them if it wasn't for the great cover. And in others, it's just the cover, you know, and it wouldn't be, you know, I wouldn't buy a Britney Spears album. I mean, it's going to be music that is along the lines of something that I would like, or I would buy, or I would pick up anyway. But, you know, maybe not that particular album, or maybe in some cases not the particular artist. There's a few things in here that I've already showed, but, oh my God, this is heavy. I'm going to start with a couple things you guys have seen, but I was going to pick up, you know, something by Azimuth anyway, because I had heard pianist John Taylor and vocalist Norma Winstone on other ECM sessions as side people. But when it came time to buy an Azimuth album, there's a couple out there already at the time I got this, and I just fell in love with that cover, and I said, oh, that's the one. I was debating whether or not to include that because I was kind of going in that direction anyway. But, you know, potentially if I didn't like it, I wouldn't have probably picked up others by them. So I let the cover art kind of sway me on that one. Here's one. As good as it is, I probably wouldn't have picked it up just because there's so many of them around, by this artist. And I hope you can really see the cover. It's pianist Richie Byrock and bassist George Mraz, a duo album that they did. I don't know if this ever came out on CD, called Rendezvous, just a duo, piano and upright bass. And I was familiar with these guys because they both at the same time played in John Abercrombie's quartet in the late 70s, like 78, 79, and 80. It's a beautiful, subtle album from 1981, looks like. Yeah, it looks like 1981. Yeah. Recorded in 2 days, January 24th and 25th, 1981. And sorry for the glare, but man, is that a beautiful photo. This is one that I would definitely hang on my wall. I'm trying to tilt this so you can get an idea of the photo. Incredible, isn't it? It's a pretty album. I'm not sure if I would have bought it. You know, it's the cover is the thing that put it over the edge for me, which is kind of the theme of this video. Just that beautiful purple hue and that's really something, huh? Yeah, so I'm not sure. This is, you know, very quiet, having no drums or anything. It's the kind of thing that would do well on CD, but I'm not sure it came out. It's on a International Phonograph. Is that the record label? IPI from Connecticut. This is a label I've never heard of. I didn't even know that's what was on there. Pretty album, pretty cover. And that's not insulting to the music at all, by the way. Some of these, like the next one, really, I love the album. Here's a guy I never heard of. The reason I never heard of him, he only came out with this one album as far as I can tell. Stephen or Stefan Cordell, Wine Dark Sea, which I showed because I think I missed this one. I missed the CD on. Remember flipping through the racks on Saturday. I can remember the store that I was in and everything, and this was late 80s. It was in the New Age section, so I thought it would be something that I'd be interested in. But it's the cover that sold me on it, and fairly representative of the music. It's not abstract at all. It gets there's a drum machine on there at times, so it gets a little powerful. But there's a lot of real beauty on this album, and it's just two long pieces, which is probably another thing that sold me on it. Just two long pieces, one 20-minute thing on each side of the album. So a lot of these really turned out to be albums that I loved, including this next one, Philo von Westerhagen, which I think I've showed too because I missed the CD on this, from the Lifestyle recording, and this is again something that I bought in the very, very early 80s. I just love that. That's a real building, and you can clearly tell that's not in America. I don't know about the background. The background might not be, well, no, the background's probably real, but I'm not sure. There's something incredibly abstract about that building in that location, and that's clearly not in the United States. And just the way it's lit and everything up there by the windows. Turns out to be a kind of jazzy new age album that I very much like. He did, Philo von Westerhagen did have a couple other albums out. I've only seen them as imports, and I was never able to get any of them. Pretty impossible to get, went out of print fast, all that, kind of thing. But I really like the album. Here's one. I was going to get a Coltrane eventually anyway. I had John Coltrane, as a sideman on the Miles Davis 1950s quintet sessions when he played with Miles Davis, but knew that he had gone on to do much wilder music and much more advanced experimental music later on. But vast, even though he didn't live to be very old, he recorded a lot. There's a lot of albums by him and a lot of live albums and stuff like that. So, when I went looking, I'm going to get something by Coltrane. What do I get? I don't know. Let me just pick out the record cover. And this is called Interstellar Space, which would make you think it's spacey, but it's incredibly not spacey. The other thing besides the cover that sold me, which is a beautiful back cover as well, because I'm a sucker for solo albums and duet albums, this is one of the, this could be the only thing that Coltrane's done that was just a duo for the whole album. Just him on saxophone and Rashid Ali on drums in a session. It's wild, free stuff. This is not music you sit and you could ever fall asleep to. It's very wild, it's very free, but it's just the one saxophone and Rashid Ali on drums. And I still listen to this day, and as a matter of fact, you have to really be in the mood for it. Nice picture of Rashid Ali, Coltrane. This was one of the very last things that Coltrane recorded before he died. Possibly his last studio date, but I'm not 100% sure of that, but close to it. It was recorded very close to where I live in New Jersey. There's a famous Rudy Van Gelder studio still active and going in Englewood Cliffs, which is not far from where I live. February 22, 1967, this was recorded, and I'm pretty sure it was, I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure it was 68 that Coltrane died, though. It may have actually been in 67. I should have checked that first. I like this so much that there was 2 tracks left over from the session that they didn't put on the album. By the way, I think this only came out after he died. I think that this was some of that material that they just held back, and maybe that was just too friggin' weird or something. I get desires to listen. I'm going to probably end up listening to it as soon as I get off of the video here. There was 2 additional tracks recorded on here. All the tracks are named after planets, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn. There was another one, I think Pluto, and an alternate version of, I want to say Venus, but I'm not sure. And they're all long tracks that were recorded also. They came out on a separate album, a separate single disc album, vinyl album, that included a bunch of sessions of leftover stuff. So the 2 tracks that were left over from this session and a couple other sessions that had leftover tracks that didn't make it on the original single albums. Nice thing is when they reissued this on CD, not only did they reissue all these 4 tracks, but they included the 2 additional tracks that they recorded on that day that had been attached to a separate album of odds and sods kind of thing. So you get the full experience, and it probably goes on for 50 or 60 minutes, I want to say, around somewhere around there, almost. And it's kind of tough to get through. It's very free stuff, but if I was going to listen to Coltrane play in that format, I would rather listen with a stripped down thing like this than with a full band. He did a few free things. Was it Pharoah Sanders, the other saxophone player? And it's just too much. He had a Live in Japan album, and it had the full band and the 2 saxophone players wailing at the same time, and it was just too much for me to stand for more than a bit, But there's something about this. Got to be in the mood for it. Got to be in the frame of mind. But oddly enough, even though I bought other Coltrane things, this is one of the first. It could be the first John Coltrane CD I bought as well as album, because it's just one of those things that's so different than just about everything else he's done. Getting on to artwork. I'm a sucker for 50s and 60s style artwork. This I definitely bought. I knew nothing about these guys. It's a very mainstream jazz-oriented, very conservative jazz, very much standards-oriented group. But I just love that cover. I don't know why. That 50s style art I'm a sucker for. Ruby Braff, George Barnes, Michael Moore, Wayne Wright. Oh, this is a Concord. I didn't even realize it's a Concord. And, yeah, they do, what is this from? 1975. Oh, 1975. Nice, though. Nice, God, I've listened to this for so long. I don't have this on CD. Trumpet. I think it's trumpet, guitar, bass, and drums. Doing all standard. Well, salutes Rodgers and Hart. This is how much I read. I'm staring at the picture. So it's all, Rodgers and Hart stuff. A little bit conservative for me. But then again, sometimes I like that. Like the Lighthouse, the Lighthouse recordings. That's very conservative type jazz. And since I'm mentioning them, I'll show them. The thing that got me into them was, again, the thing that got me into the Lighthouse jazz thing was reading a lot about them, and this is an OJC, Original Jazz Classics album. I read about the whole scene at the Lighthouse and the club, and that whole thing of the Sunday 12-hour sessions they used to have that start, I think it was 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. every Sunday. And just the whole scene in Hermosa Beach, California, where this club was. And, the fact that they had a core band that was held down mainly by bassist Howard Rumsey, who's 90-something years old but still alive currently. But when I don't know if I read a little bit about them after or before, or possibly even just from the records themselves, from flipping through the racks, because the OJCs have a little bit of history attached to them here. And when I saw that artwork, which is actually a drawing of what the club actually does look like, or it certainly did at the time. It's still around, but I don't know how much it looks like that now. I had to have it. And, again, I ended up buying other albums from this. So, quite often, I'm not being discouraged by the fact that, I don't know anything about the music in a lot of these cases, and I'm just buying the albums. And here's a whole series, and I just found 2 of these. I think I've got 4 of these. I don't know why. I just like that logo. It's the Pacific Jazz logo. And they put out a compilation. This was, I think I would look first now, 78. 78. They came out, it's at least 4 discs of compilation of artists that recorded for them, all single discs. And I think it was the 50s Volume 1 and 2, and the 60s Volume 1 and 2, if I'm not mistaken. And I think I've got all 4 of them. I only just came across these 2, so you can see they used different colors in the same picture, which is their logo. You can see the palm trees in the background. I don't know why that floated my boat, but it was also a good introduction to a lot of artists that I didn't know. I mean, and some I did. It's got Wes Montgomery on here, which I tons of stuff by him. Jim Hall, tons of stuff by him. Art Pepper, at the time, I didn't have a lot by him. Jerry Mulligan, I didn't have a lot by him. Bob Brookmeyer Quartet didn't have a lot by him. Even Gil Evans. And Cannonball Adderley, I never knew they played together. It's been a long time since today's the first time I even pulled this out in God knows how many years. Another band that I think this may have been the first album I got by them. Not sure. But I would certainly have been swayed by the album cover, and I knew a bit about them, I think, at the time. At the time, they were still, Modern Jazz Quartet was still very much active, and I may have seen something by them on PBS. I don't know. This is a movie soundtrack that they did for a movie around 56 or 57. And it's technically a movie soundtrack, but you know, there's nothing on here that would suggest that. But look at that painting on that cover. I think Venice on it. An album. No. As much as I've listened to this, No Sun in Venice, I always forget the title, and I'm guessing what the picture is of, and all I have to do is read the title. Again, I'm looking and not reading. And it's funny because I've listened to this album so much, and I always, you know, being instrumental music, the titles end up kind of fading in memory. This is probably, though, and they made a lot of low-key quiet albums, obviously. Modern Jazz Quartet, John Lewis, Percy Heath on bass, and this for a long time, Connie Kay on drums. And I think all of these are. I think you know. Usually they did a mix of standards. Sorry, I missed Milt Jackson on vibraphone, which I forgot to mention. You know, most of their albums they would do a mixture of a lot of stuff that was written by pianist John Lewis, and that was the third stream stuff. You know, where you've got the heavy classical influence, and then they would do a lot of blues. That was Milt Jackson's specialty. But because this was a soundtrack, yeah, the entire thing is written by John Lewis. And this was something I couldn't buy fast enough on CD because it's so quiet. It's so there's moments that you're like, I don't hear anything going on. That's so low key, very beautiful. You know, possibly even something that somebody that might not like mainstream jazz could potentially like. Because it's just not endless, you know, soloing or something. Beautiful album. Bought the CD second it came out. Another one. I don't know how much I knew about Eric Dolphy before I bought this, but I love this album cover, and I had to get it because of the album cover. Out to Lunch reminds me of you know, 50s, 60s. I mean, that's the kind of thing you don't see much anymore. You know, those little small businesses with the little clocks in the window that say, you know, we'll be back tomorrow at blah 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 whatever time. Kind of reminds me of Main Street USA growing up as a kid. You know, when there's a lot of little shops around like that. Great Blue Note cover. Not sure how much I knew about Eric Dolphy. I think I'd read about him, knew a little bit about his history, but again, didn't know where to start. So I decided let the record cover pick it out for me. And this, which I bought pretty much at the same time, my favorite Eric Dolphy album cover. And again, OJC, the original jazz classics. This is probably why these things sold so well, because all these albums had come out. This is the original cover from this session. And after it was available for X number of years, they decide, you know, it's probably not selling an incredible amount. Let's repackage these. And that's when they started doing those two-fers that I've been referring to lately, where they had two albums by the artist at a very reasonable price, but repackaged, new cover design, gatefold sleeve, which was cool. The gatefold would usually include all the history of the session and how important it was in that artist's canon of work, and all that kind of stuff, and the historical significance and what period of his art it was in. And again, most of those two-for albums were coming out 20 or more years after the original session, so they had a lot of history to them. When's this session from? I want to say 1950 something, but I can't find it on here right now. I'm sitting here letting you watch me try to find it, but I'm not finding it. But I think this is around the 59. I'm guessing this is about a 59 session. This is only his second album as a leader. God, do I love that cover. I love that cover. I love that brownish color and the way it really makes the sun and the shadows look like almost real but surreal at the same time. And Ron Carter's on this. Pretty young guy at the time. Here's another one. I like Paul Desmond. Paul Desmond was the saxophone player in Dave Brubeck's famous quartet where they played Take 5. He has some really good solo albums. And I had some of the later ones. I'm not sure the order I bought this in. But I definitely bought this because of the cover. As simple as it is, I don't know. I just liked it. And maybe this one shouldn't be in here because it's kind of like I was already familiar with Paul. I wasn't attempting to buy everything by him, or else I wouldn't have, included it here. It was one of those ones that I picked up just because I knew him, had a couple albums by him that were very different, that were from a much later period in his life, the 70s. But I tell you, I kind of let it, as simple as it is, that cover kind of win me over. And this is a much earlier session. And I can't find the date on here when this was recorded, but this would be, it's a fantasy record. Again, late 50s, maybe early 60s. And all the stuff I had by him was from another period. And Dave Brubeck, I was familiar with Dave Brubeck. This is real early. This is one of the first things he did as a leader. He had an octet, which had actually, Paul Desmond was in the octet. So him and Paul went way back, I think, to their college days. And Cal Tjader was in this as well. Cal Tjader was a vibraphone player that was leader in his own right. Though I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, Cal Tjader played drums on this. And it's just, again, that 50s art, and another OJC, original jazz classics. The weird thing was, all these albums I'm showing were albums, these are the original album covers. They had come out, when they were new albums, stayed in print for years with the original album covers, and were almost always paired up as twofers with redesigned album covers. And somebody who was very smart decided to get the idea in the early 80s, just a couple years before the CD era, got the idea to put them out again with the original covers and see if people were interested in them. And personally, I am. The covers kind of reflect, in a lot of cases, not only the time period, obviously in the kind of pop art of the time period, which I love, and, paintings or whatever, but also the music inside. You look at a cover and there's something about it that screams late 50s, early 60s, and when the music's part of that, it, in a weird way, it enhances my enjoyment of the music. Here's another one. I bought another OJC. I put only because of the cover, the Thelonious Monk Quartet. I love this cover. I'm to the point that I'm ready to rip that band off because I just want to see the rest of it. And again, I know Thelonious Monk was a genius, but I'm not a huge fan. And if I'm going to listen to him, oddly enough, because his music is so angular, for some reason I prefer to listen to solo piano. He did some solo piano discs. With a band, it's, for some reason, harder for me. Sometimes you don't know where to focus, because his playing is so weird that you're listening to his playing the piano, even if somebody else is playing a solo, because you never know what the hell he's going to do on the piano. And it's probably not the way you were meant to listen to the music. If somebody's soloing, the piano's comping underneath there, you probably should be listening to the soloist or something. But I always found myself kind of tuned into listening to him. So when I am in the mood to hear Thelonious, it's usually, let me just hear him on his own. And I'm not distracted by other people being there. If that makes any sense at all. That's it for the albums. I have a few CDs. Just a few. But again, these are things I bought. Well, this first one I bought, it's a classical from Debussy, who I had piano works on, but I didn't have a lot of orchestral works by him, which, by the way, is a fantastic album. It's called Painting by Music. But how do you, especially in the classical world, which I know almost nothing about, how do you choose one album over the other, especially with somebody like this? You look up Debussy, you'll find 3,000 albums of his. It was a clearance thing that was, I believe, very reasonably priced. I had a lot of solo piano Debussy music. And his music is known for being very, easily amongst the most traditional classical musicians in terms of the ease of accessibility. I can't think of another classical musician that work is as easy to get into. It's not difficult stuff at all. It's very lush and beautiful for the most part. It's complex, a lot of it, but it's not atonal. It's not out there, and this is a really good album. And I think I bought it because it's on clearance. I love that album cover though. I'm trying to stick it right in your face there. Don't know why. Just love it. So I bought that. I wasn't disappointed. Now, my oddball tastes. Learn something about me. One of my favorite times of year is Halloween. And Halloween and classical music may not be what you think of when you think of Halloween, but a lot of classical music has actually been used throughout the years, probably since like the 30s, in Halloween-themed movies, even cartoons over the years. And again, here's a chance to get a taste of some classical music, and there's various artist things. It's the New Symphony Orchestra of London playing Liszt, Gounod, Humperdinck, Saint-Saëns. I never knew how to pronounce that. Mussorgsky. So it's all different classical composers. But yeah, I'm still a sucker for those Halloween pictures. I love that album cover. I love the purple. I love the, and it's a great album. Actually, I don't think I have anything here that I don't like, even though I bought these strictly because of the cover. The Thelonious Monk is probably the hardest to get into, and probably the one I would play the least. But I would play something else by him in its place. Here's another one, exactly same as the previous one. Look at that photo, Witch's Brew. It's another classical compilation of various classical composers doing works. And actually, you know what? You've probably heard at least half of these before, used all over the place in TV and movies. Night on Bear Mountain, Dance Macabre is a personal favorite of mine, so I knew actually some of the music. But why would I buy this CD over the 30,000 other compilation classical CDs? And the music's a little dark. For mainstream classical music, maybe it's a little darker than your average one, which appeals to me. But it's the cover that sold me. Beautiful photograph. Good album, too. Here's a composer that I think what happened is I might have seen this cover and loved it so much. This is a box set, too. This was not cheap, so I must really be out of my mind. This is a 4-CD box set by a composer I had never heard of. And I don't know if it's the album cover that I saw first that made me want to buy it, but because it's a 4-CD set, I'm like, I better check this guy out a little bit. Well, he's a classical composer, Spanish, I believe, and I could sit here and read the whole back, but oh no, there's no info there. Died in 1987. There's a group of classical piano players that love to play his music. It's not as busy as a lot of classical music, which is nice, but the thing that made me buy it is the album cover. Before I sprung for the 4-CD set, though, I did do some research and kind of verified that it sounded like something that I would like. I had never heard of the composer before. And one of the things I like about it, because there's no shortage of single-disc CDs of his music, but one of the things besides the cover that sold me on it was the fact that this was a very rare instance of the composer, Mampao, I guess is how you pronounce it, actually recording his own work. So he's the one playing the piano, it's all solo piano, on these recordings done in 1974. And like I said, he died in 87, I think. Yeah, 1987. and pretty nice stuff. I haven't listened to it for a while. Maybe I'm going to put this on today, at least one of the discs. But I like that. I like that cover. I don't know what drew me to it actually. Kind of expensive. That's 4 discs. My last one that I have to show you. This, I saw the cover first, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know why I love that so much. It's just like totem poles, statue totem poles. I think this is one of those cases where you buy something, and based on what you bought, the intelligent search engine or whatever you call it suggests things that are similar or that other people have bought. So I must have bought something along this lines, and this picture came up, and I'm like, oh my god, that's cool. What is it? Well, it's Ponce, Manuel Ponce, I believe is how you pronounce the composer's name. It's classical guitar, so it's not like it's something I wouldn't have bought. Nylon string classical guitar, played entirely solo, without any accompaniment, no orchestra or anything. It's by classical guitarist Stephen Marchionda. Wow, that's too easy. Marchionda? Marchionda, perhaps. Stephen or Stephen. But I love that picture. And now that I'm looking at it, you can kind of tell it's totem poles. But for some reason, I thought it was something else. And this led me into it. Just buying this CD has nothing to do with the music. The music's fine, as it turns out. Led me to this thing that I thought this was pictures of something else besides totem poles. And it kind of looks like it really might just be totem poles. I don't know if anyone out there is familiar with the whole Easter Island thing, you know, with the statues there. But in the back of my mind, I knew that there was something else that this reminded me of. And I don't know where I would have heard of Easter Island or how I even found out about it. But the other, not the main one there, but those other statues remind me a bit of the things that are on Easter Island. And based on only buying this CD because of the cover, and this isn't even supposed to be a picture of Easter Island, I ended up like becoming this somewhat fanatical about like seeing programs about Easter Island where they have all these statues that were there for hundreds of years that they don't know how they got there. Logistically, they're so big and so large and so heavy that they couldn't figure out how the hell the people got dozens of statues spread throughout the island. And if you just look up like on Wikipedia or something, Easter Island, and it will link you to see some photographs. And ever since I bought this, I've been a little bit obsessed by Easter Island. Not someplace I would ever go to. It's so much in the middle of nowhere. You got a little island out in the middle of, oh my god, I would never fly that long to get there. But I've actually got quite a few TV programs. And like the science-oriented, like the History Channel kind of thing will show something on Easter Island. And I got into that simply because of this picture of an album that has nothing to do with it in reality. And it's a nice little classical guitar CD. That's a lot of them. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do a part 2 or not. I guess as I go through my crap all over the place, I might find some others. But I thought it was an interesting little diversion, maybe. Like I said, I haven't really had bad luck buying things strictly on liking the album covers. Then again, like I said, I didn't go into the Britney Spears section either. Okay, guys. I'm wondering, this could be a thread for other people to pick up on too, because I would love to hear not only the ones you bought because of the album covers for any reason, even if the music you knew would be awful, but what your impression of those particular albums was after you bought them, strictly because was it awful? Was it good? Did it get you into somebody new? That would be interesting for me to hear if anybody else has been as insane as I've been about doing this over the years. Okay, guys, I went long again. I'm sorry. But just a little something different, and I hope everybody's doing well, having a great week, and I really appreciate your watching my videos. Have a great day, folks. Bye.